Okay, people, before we really get started on our strategy, our plan, I want to do one thing just to make sure it's really clear to everyone that when you use diagonals, it works every time. And how it works is independent of the ratio. And we remember how when we had our crosshairs, we always get a number, but there's no ratio involved. And then when we did the same operation for our golden rectangle, we kept getting squares and golden rectangles. And to show that the rule of the reciprocal with the diagonal always works, I'm going to use an example. This is square, and I've just taken and made black around it so it's clear this is the square that we're going to be dealing with. And we're going to go here, and we're going to do the operation exactly like we did before, except for this time we have a square. And so what happens, we put in our first square. Great. And then we put in our, now you see, each time, first time we had a yellow long strip, and now we get a square. And the first square is 1/4 of the size of the original. And now we're going down in size. And we put our next square in, and that square is an 1/8. And you'll see these proportions just happen really naturally. And we get to 1/16. Then we have another long thin square. And then we end up with one that's 1/32. This is falling off, as you can see, by twos. So here we go, and now we get another long square, and then we get 64ths. Now here we go, one more time, and then our final one, which is 128th of that square. And the nice thing about this is I didn't have to actually make any calculations other than to be careful about where I place my diagonals. And I got these great forms that if you look at them, you can see that not only do we have the same shapes, but we also have proportions that all relate to each other and all relate to the size of the current shape. So I'm gonna give this up, and then let's think about this for a moment, because as we said before, we have the option of doing this from many different angles. So we can do it from the other side, and we can do it from here, and we can do it from here. So what happens is that we can split up the space very easily into something that would be a symmetry of 4, very much like North American Indians, as he was talking about. And notice that this symmetry, this 4 square symmetry, also has self-similarity in it. The thing is the self-similarity comes from a lot of the negative shapes that we can use. So we're gonna look at it a little bit further just to make sure that we're real clear here. So we're gonna just for the moment get rid of our lines here. For the moment, we're just going to let them go. And we're going to leave this middle one so we can have some idea what we're doing. And I'm going to take my shapes now, and I'm just going to start to move them out of here, and then you start to see a great thing that happens. All right. Open this up, and I can take these shapes, and you can see what a lovely way in which they digress here. And we get this shape, and so we can do the same thing here. You can see we get the same kind of reductions here. And I'll put this last one up here, and you can see how we're gradually moving down at a constant rate. So you can see between these two. And also the interesting thing about this is also fills the plane, so we don't necessarily have to put them together back in the same way. They don't have to go back together in a sort of spiraling shape. We could do all kinds of things with them. We could, for instance, we move some of these things over here and think about it differently. So let's move our shapes over here. And suppose we said we'll move this over here too. And we said we want this so I'll move these out of the way because we want all our shapes again because we need them to fill. But suppose we want to do something like this. Will that work? As it turns out, it will. So what we can do is we can start to fill in unusual forms now. See, we can start to make shapes that aren't necessarily the ones we started with, and these can get very, very interesting very quickly. And yet they're also shape filling. And let's see, we come over here. You make one of these over here, like so. Square here. And you can start to see that we are not so limited about how we can put together our shape because we can take them apart and put them together in any way we want. And I did this with a square so that you can see that relationship. It doesn't have to be just for that, but the most important aspect is that it's self-similar and there's a relationship between the frame, the exterior, and all the shapes inside. And so now we're going to look at our whole frame, and we're going to try to go back and look at what Olama did and see if we can approach it in an organized way and come up with a solution or an approach that would pretty much give us a conscious answer every time.